Hi everybody, it's Tara Palaki here and welcome to tonight's Insta Live. I am Tara Palaki and I've put together this series called Honouring Your Body, and this is a series of Insta chats that are going to be and have been around a variety of topics that highlight how to work with our bodies, minds and energies during certain difficult experiences or challenging times in our lives. The aim of this series is quite simply to help us listen, recognise and honour what our bodies are telling us, and to share remedies that are easy, simple and make a positive difference. So who am I? I am Tara Palaki, kinesiologist and yoga teacher. And when working with people, I use a special blend of energy medicine, mindful movement to create unique roadmaps and toolkits to help women calm their minds, align their energies and heal naturally. And this evening, we are going to be discussing a topic that is very dear to my heart, which is all around anxiety. And I have a very dear friend coming on to go live with. So I'm just waiting for her to come live. Tonight's conversation is all about anxiety. And I know many of us. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, my love. So just beginning to share, tonight's conversation is all around anxiety. And I think it's fair to say that for almost anybody in their lifetime will experience anxiety to some degree. For some, it might be a very mild and fleeting sensation. For others, actually, it can completely consume them and can be a full body sensory experience that can play true havoc with daily life. And so I believe it's a really important topic for us to be discussing and to be sharing, but also for every person to have a helpful toolkit that they can count on when they need it. And I can think of nobody better to be having this conversation with than my good friend, Natasha Jay Wellfare. So Natasha is from the Wellness Project and is an experienced mental health counsellor and yoga and mindfulness teacher. And we've spoken in the time that I've known you, anxiety's cropped up in various different ways, various different guises. And I know that when we were starting to look at the mind and mental health, I wanted to reach out to you because your compassion, your experience, your ability to include everybody in your messages is so powerful. And I'm so grateful that you are here this evening to join me on this conversation.
Oh, that's such a lovely, I've got the warm and the fuzzies now. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Ah, wonderful you are here. And I can see that we've got people who have come and joined us this evening. So good evening. And without further ado, I welcome Natasha to the stage. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a mental health counsellor and also a yoga and mindfulness teacher. And as I was listening to your introduction just then, I was sort of slightly reflecting on how having both of those roles and having both of those interests, I think, is something that really helps when I'm working with clients with anxiety and when, you know, I'm considering anxiety. And it's something that you and I think are going to dive into a little bit, you know, deeper this evening. But of course, it is such a somatic thing, isn't it? You know, stress and anxiety, it's such a body thing. And it's really helpful for me, not only as a practitioner, but also as, you know, a human being, somebody who, you know, has my own anxiety, particularly over the last year. You know, the yoga, the mindfulness, all of the sort of body stuff, I think, you know, really helps alongside, you know, looking at how we communicate others, looking intrapsychically, looking at, you know, at our personality.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like that's one of your really unique gifts, is this blend between the mind and the body, because like you say, anxiety is that full body experience. It's in the mind, it's in the emotions, it's in the energy, it's in the physicality. And so when you're working with people in that blended way, actually that's where it becomes a really powerful toolkit, because you know, the breathing shifts and changes, doesn't it? The tension, how people hold themselves. That
Mm, mm,
so
mm.
with that and this beautiful approach that you have, what I'd really like to start with is to get a clearer sense from you on what you believe is most often overlooked about anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've probably already touched on the first point a little bit. And that is just how many people are, affected by it, especially in light of the last year. I mean, I can think of so few people, who haven't suffered with some level of anxiety on that spectrum that you so beautifully described.
Mm.
That really does sort of range from, a bit of over worrying, a little bit of somatic anxiety, but, relatively low level, all the way through to, it being completely debilitating and perhaps not being able to leave the house, or, being physically sick as a sort of reaction to anxiety. So it really does range from, from low level to something that is, much more difficult to cope with. So I think the different presentations are overlooked, that anxiety can present in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
And I think we need to really think about the types of people that supposedly do or don't suffer from anxiety, because of course our unconscious biases will come into that, won't they? There's probably still a bit of old-fashioned thinking around, worry being a woman's thing, for example. And of course now we're talking so much more about, men and mental health. It's another subject that I'm quite passionate about. But these ideas that these old-fashioned ideas that women are more the worriers, and men can just carry the weight of the world on their shoulders effortlessly because they're men and that's their job and that's what they do. I mean, this is just such rubbish, isn't it? And it's really deeply unhelpful.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens for guys is, we create this culture that is passed down, and it gets stronger and stronger of, it's not okay to show signs of worry and anxiety. And it leaves them really very much with nowhere to go, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been really interesting this year. I've been working with a group of guys, and that's quite unlike me. Usually I tend to work much more with women. And it was set up through a friend, and but in a very professional capacity. And it's a group of guys with visual impairments, and they've had the space to be able to talk and share and to be able to relate to one another and shed the conditioning, and to shed that they've got to all be in this almost like it happens to somebody else, and they can talk very openly and freely, and they've got shared experience. And every single guy will take away from that group, will say that the best thing has been to make other connections and to be able to talk and to be able to share. And that is so often overlooked, or doesn't feel as easily accessible to many men as it does women. But I still know a number of women that can struggle with talking and sharing about how they really feel, and how they might be perceived. And I think that can be right across the board, can't it? As to how the fear of judgment, the fear of how they'll be perceived if people open up and actually share what's going on for them, their worries, their concerns. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, we all live to stereotypes, don't we? We're all, let's be really honest about it. We're all trying to sort of be an image of something or someone, perhaps a perfect version of ourselves. And the more that we can sort of just try and drop that and tune in with some sense of authenticity, and sort of really connect in with, how we feel and who we really are, then we can start to move, away from, the what ifs. When I think about anxiety, I often describe it as being either living in the past. So sometimes the past tends to haunt us. So, we suffer guilt and shame. We have this awful video player in our heads that replays all of the things we've done wrong, with this, it happens without us even realizing it. We can catch ourselves in that moment. But living so much sort of in the past and being haunted by what's happened before. And then we can, alternatively, we can be doing the what ifs, which are projecting into the future. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if I don't, what if I don't achieve that? What if people judge me for this or that? So, and I think where mindfulness is so interesting and where the yoga connection comes in is that it gives us an opportunity, and it is one of the many opportunities, but it gives us an opportunity to be really, really present. And I think when we're present, it's very difficult to be in anxiety. I think possibly, we can't be anxious when we're absolutely in this moment with our body, with our breath, living each breath at a time, sort of thing. Yeah.
Do you encourage people into this? Because we're hearing more and more, aren't we, around this becoming present? And I feel it's such a beautiful place to be in. It's quite a place that many of us would aspire to be in. How would you encourage somebody to come into the present? How would you encourage them to be in the moment?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I mean, I'm really clear with people that everyone has to find their version of mindfulness. There is a mindful way of running. There is a mindful way of walking, a mindful way of even eating your dinner. You do not have to sit in a really uncomfortable position at 7 a.m. omming to the sun coming up, sort of thing. It's just, for some people, that's great, go for it. But you've got to find your way of being in the present moment. And there's lots of ways to do that. It takes a little bit of experimentation. I'm really careful not to sort of push anything onto, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. So I test doors. Like I give that door a little bit of a poke, and then we try that door, and then we try that door.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to go and experiment a bit with maybe the Calm app and the Headspace app, and find the bits that they like. I love the soundscapes. I don't always want somebody talking to me all of the time. I don't always want to hear another human voice, but for me it can be absolutely lovely to hit the pause button, lie like a sort of starfish on the floor, and listen to the sounds of the Costa Rican jungle for like 10 or 15 minutes. It's absolutely fabulous, but that's not going to work for everyone. So you have to sort of experiment and test things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing to share with people, that it's about finding your own journey and your own way, and also knowing that what worked for you on one day, you might need something slightly different the next day. So, for example, I know as a woman in my cycle, some days I need to go for a run. Like if I'm experiencing anxiety, I need to go and do something really physical. I need to burn off that charge. Other times, actually, I need to be very still and very meditative. And it's learning about what approach when, and learning again. Part of that experimentation that you so beautifully described is learning what works for you and what's helpful for you, because
yeah,
someone drove.
absolutely. I think what's really important in that is that you have to press the pause button. You'll hear me banging on about pause buttons. I'm obsessed with them. But if you don't press the pause button and turn your awareness inward, you're not going to know what you need. And you're just going to be running on autopilot.
Yeah.
So you have to step away. You have to move away from your computer. You have to create your own little bit of silence just for a couple of minutes. And I'm getting better at, I'm definitely getting better at this, but just checking in and saying, what do I really need right now? I was on a training course for the whole of the weekend, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And I did something on, I think it was Sunday morning before the training started, that I don't know if I've ever done this before in my whole life, but I went for this walk along the seafront, but it was a really slow walk. I just really, really felt like I needed it. And because I'm always walking in such a hurry to, I'm listening to a podcast or music and I'm storming, I'm not very good at walking gently and slowly. And I thought, I'm going to go for a wander and I'm going to take it all in. And it was absolutely magnificent. Honestly, I kid you not, it's one of the best things I have ever done. And ironically, I don't think I've ever done it in my whole life.
Wow. And that's the other thing, like you can still discover things, can't you? And that's one of the reasons why I love chatting with people like you, because every conversation that you are exposed to around, say, something like anxiety or mindfulness, there'll be new ideas that drop in, there'll be new conversations, there'll be different words, there'll be things that spark and stimulate. And as we're growing and evolving, our toolkits are the things that help us navigate our life. They also need to grow with us. And like you say, you're in mindfulness. This is your thing, and yet you had this unique experience on Sunday, and that's where the power of having that ability to experiment and to open your sensory experiences, test stuff out, try it out, see how it works. And also, I think, to expose yourself to these sorts of conversations, because there is richness there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what was absolutely significant is that I stopped and paused very briefly before I went out for the walk. And I just took that little moment to stop myself from going on autopilot, because so much of what we do is on autopilot. You think it's just everything is so familiar, you know. I say to people, if you walk out the door and turn left, try walking out the door and turning right, see what happens. You know, and I have to remind myself of that as well, because I'm not always brilliant at sort of, you know, shaking things up and taking risks. But if you think about, you know, newness, because what we're really talking about is a new experience, or experiencing the world in a new way. It's the same street that I walk down every single day, but I'm just experiencing it differently. And we just haven't had much of that newness over the last year, have we? We haven't really felt like we've had a new approach to anything. It's been really missing.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. I hear you with that, because it has been for many of us. And even if we are chatting with people that we would normally, even the conversation's pretty similar, isn't it? You know, as you go around the last year, had quite a significant one focus. And as we come out of lockdown, as we come out into the new normal, or however we want to call it, I'm also aware that that can provoke a number of different anxieties for people at the moment. And, you know, as much as we're aching to return back to normal, there can also be this angst as to what that may look, sound and feel like. And so how do you see that pause for thought, that pausing for a moment, being helpful as we go through the coming days and weeks, maybe even months?
I just think we have to be really careful not to be caught up in everything. So, you know, we don't have to rush out to the shops and start buying lots of clothes in a really sort of frenzied way. You know, they're still going to be open in 2 weeks and a month and 2 months probably.
Yeah.
You know, what do we really need to do? For me, I mean, some people might get a real buzz from that. You know, some people's, you know, child ego states might be like, yay, I saw a video today of somebody skipping down the road with these shopping bags. And for that person, she's just having a ball. That is exactly what her mental health needs right now. For me, I need to ease back into kind of busyness quite slowly, because I've actually quite enjoyed this quieter time in many ways. And so I think it's going to be important for me to ease back into it. What about you? What's your approach?
I am needing to check in. I'm doing a lot of pausing and really mindfully becoming present, because exactly for the things that you've spoken about, it's very easy to get caught up in just the like I shoulds. And what I'm really wanting to do is to come into this place mindfully. Am I in alignment with this action? Am I, you know, how does my body feel if I'm doing this? How do I feel? How is my energy? How is my mind, my clarity? What's my intention behind doing this? So I feel like now is a really prime opportunity to get really present to how I want opening up to look and sound and feel like, rather than to go back to how it was, because this is a really beautiful opportunity right now, I feel, to create a life that really resonates and is in greatest alignment with me right now. So I'm just mindful of that and at this moment in time. But that pausing for thought, I think, is just Yeah, that's such a great summary of that pause for
Pausing, pausing for sensing and feeling as well, isn't it? It's sort of like, notice my mind, what my thoughts doing, what's my body doing. You know, it's a real kind of holistic checking, and we can get really good at that. It's like building a muscle. We can just practice it a bit more, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of this is practice, isn't it? So much of this is that exposure to getting back in connection with our body, getting back in connection with our energy. How does things feel? What do we think? How do we feel, think? How are we in certain spaces, places, and with people? And that's such a great check-in. I'd really love to hear in the comments as we're chatting. Do feel free to ask any questions or share any practices that you're doing at the moment, because I know that, again, as we're all watching here, that everyone will have their own new approaches, or will have things that are resonating as we speak, or there'll be questions starting to come up. So please do drop something in the chat. I can just see that there's a couple of things come in, so I'll just read them as we're going through. Thank you for the reminder to listen to our feelings and not rush into doing things just because we're allowed to. I hope you don't mind me commenting, but I have a few friends that have been anxious in lockdown and I'm helping them. Oh, we seem to have lost the rest of the message.
I think that's Nico. I think he's saying he's helping them out he's helping his friends out in lockdown. Yeah, that's really nice, Nico. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been sorry, go on, Mother.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting that Nico says that, actually, because I think friendships have been really interesting over lockdown. And I think part of this emerging from lockdown, you know, we are wondering how our friendships are going to be after this. You know, I've heard a lot of people talking about it. You know, it's a really tricky one. You know, easing back into the busyness, it's easing back into friendships as well. And it's sort of, you know, some friends might not have contacted us as much as we might have wanted them to over the lockdown. You know, it has tested us the last year on a number of different levels. And, you know, as we, you know, supposedly return back to normal, whatever that is, it is an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves in a sense as well. So if we want to make changes, now is a great time, I think.
Absolutely. And it's a great time seasonally. It's a great time, you know, in terms of where we're beginning to come back out. And I totally hear you with that, to create this space, to have a look, check in. And I think there'll be a lot of changes. A lot of people have also been through really profound journeys, not just friendships, but individually as well. And when I think of certain people and their experiences and people that they lost during COVID, passed on, you know, there's been some really profound experiences in the last year, and we haven't been able to connect in the same way how we would have done. And that, I think, is also going to be really interesting as to how we come out of this, and who we turn to, how we turn to people, how we meet up, how we connect with one another, how easily we can touch one another. You know, there's lots of things that we've had a new way of being put into our filter system that we won't have had for so long. And yeah, it's a really interesting time to be present and to witness what's your truth in it.
I think it's Heidi was asking something about guys and anxiety. Do you want to read that one out?
Yeah, so can you give me your thoughts on men and anxiety at the moment? Many will think it's silly to listen and connect with themselves.
So I think men are going to really love being able to go and sit outside of a pub with their mates and just sort of have a pint and do that sort of conversation. I think for guys, just being around other guys is so healthy and so healing. I don't necessarily think they always need to be talking so explicitly in the way that we do about, oh, you know, how have you been feeling and how's your anxiety? You know, they might just connect in over the football, and that might be so much for them. You know, it could be so beneficial and so healing. So I think it will be great for guys to meet up face to face and just have that shared experience, have that camaraderie, and sort of just spend that time together. And I think I run a Facebook group actually called the Wellness Cave for guys, which is a really great place. It's a sort of private group where we just post stuff about, well-being, mental health. I run it with a personal trainer, so we do lots of wellness stuff as well. It's really broad, and that's a really nice space for men to, kind of check in with each other. It's all guys except for me. So, and there is, stuff comes up, people do share in those groups and sort of support each other and help each other out. But I think, it is very individual, I think. And I think as, women with brothers, women with husbands, I think, we have to talk to the guys, and, sometimes they rely on us, don't they, to sort of give them a pointer in the right direction. So we might push them towards the pub with their friends, or, sometimes they need a little bit of encouragement. You're nodding along, Tara, is that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about lots of different guys over the last few months, thinking about my partner, thinking about my brother, and, how, or other people that I've been supporting. And again, it's all very unique, isn't it? The one thing that I have noticed is needed is the space to be able to talk if they want. And that has been probably, as a woman, that's been my biggest life lesson, has been to ask questions and then be quiet and then wait for the responses to come in, and to know that some days they will want to talk, other days they won't, and that's absolutely okay. But to ask the questions and then be quiet has certainly one of my biggest life lessons, and has been also understanding how guys talk. Women like more, I observe women liking more defined spaces. Guys almost like it to be part of something. So it's not the reason getting together, but that there's an opportunity to talk whilst doing something, or that there's a purpose as to why they're there, and then they might talk and share. Whereas women will perhaps use how they're feeling as a reason for connection. I do see guys liking to have something to do, a purpose, to then have that shared connection.
Yeah, it's such a good point. It's like women sort of often will deliberately meet up for a chat. They will meet up with the purpose of having a discussion, whereas guys will go and play football, but then the chat will be part of football, and they'll do this wonderful sort of bonding experience. But it's alongside doing. It's alongside sort of physical activity. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever, when I just think of my partner, I don't know that I've ever seen him go, oh, I need to speak to so-and-so. I'm like, I'm having a really bad day. I need to speak to so-and-so. It might be if it's work related, but other than that, generally it comes up. He's tinkering on the motorbikes, or off track days or whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Whereas women are far more comfortable to go, I'm not feeling great. Can we have a chat?
I think go ahead.
Go on, my love, go on.
I was going to say, as partners of men, or sisters of men, or mums of men, we do have a bit of a duty as well to be careful that we're not setting up these stereotypes that men need to be tough and strong and not cry, because it is quite cultural. It has been passed down, and we just need to be super, super mindful of it and make sure that we're not, adding to this idea that men need to take all of the responsibility. That they have to always present as tough and strong, and let them know that they're still attractive to you, still absolutely somebody who you admire and respect and love, even if they have this sort of softer side. We just need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I hear this permission across both, actually, men and women. I do see women also having this superwoman complex of needing to look like they are in control of everything and have everything together. And one of the hardest things, and I think this can go across both men and women, and right across the board as a human condition, that there can be a vulnerability with this perception of asking for help. And something that is so powerful when we can come into that place and can ask for help, and I do mean the right people for help, that you can trust. When I say right, I mean people that you can trust. But isn't it so interesting that we have this culture that there is a real sense of vulnerability around asking for help and saying, I need help. Yeah.
My friend Jason talks about fierce interdependence.
Mm,
He says that we need to absolutely get out of this idea that being so strong and so tough and so independent, look at me, aren't I wonderful, I can do everything all on my own, which might have been for some, for women it might be a bit of a byproduct of feminism, possibly. There's something interesting there, I think. But actually it is so toxic and so unhealthy, and we have to be really, really careful of it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's we are designed to need others, to be with others, to help others, we're pack animals, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, we need each other.
That's why I loved what somebody once said to me, we've got 2 ears and a mouth for a reason and hands that touch so that we can hear one another, that we can talk to one another, and that we can feel one another. We are designed to be interconnected with others. And,
Yeah.
our people, everybody has different skills and abilities, don't they? And that's, and I think that's also been another thing that's been interesting in lockdown, not lockdown, but this whole experience that we've been through in the last year. Usually when somebody may be going through a difficult time, other people are in a more sound place. And so, historically, if you were having a bad time, somebody else is in a more sound place because perhaps their life, isn't being as, they're just not going through their stuff at that moment. Whereas that's been another thing that's impacted friends, family, relationships this year, is that the past year, everybody's been going through stuff in one way or another, haven't they? There hasn't been this same level of respite that we had perhaps before last year hit.
Yeah, we've talked quite a lot about touch already, I think, this evening. I was actually, as part of the discussion, going to talk about potentially, the three very, very practical things we can do to reduce anxiety, and one of them is touch. One of them, and that has been completely and utterly forbidden over the last year, really, for the most part. And for people living on their own, I think it's been absolutely, such a difficult experience to go without such a basic human necessity to touch and to be touched. And the other two are, breath work can calm anxiety very quickly and very effectively. We exhale for longer than we inhale. It turns up the dial on the parasympathetic nervous system. It sends a message to our brains that we're safe, basically. So breath, touch, and movement. Movement is absolutely critical when it comes to reducing stress and anxiety and getting us back into that lovely, calm place of rest and digest.
And this is going to tie in, I think, to some of the things that you shared, but also be really interested to see your take on it, because again, this is a mind switch for people. The idea of seeing people can feel overwhelming because it's been a dangerous thing to do for months. What can help in overcoming that anxiety?
Yeah, I think we have to take it really, really slowly, and I think we have to, be our own guide on that. I think we need to be very careful of feeling, literally pressured by others. But also, even if nobody's actually sort of saying to us, oh, you need to go out, you need to do this, you need to do that, we can almost be saying it to ourselves.
Yeah.
We have this inner parental critical voice that is full of the shoulds. You were using the word should earlier. You should do this, you should do that, you should have gone out by now, you shouldn't be so worried, you shouldn't be so stressed. And if we're not careful, that voice can completely and utterly take over. We need to get grounded. We need to get our feet on the ground and feel our bum on the chair, and we need to, we need to get, we call it getting into our adult ego state. And really simply what that means is, using all of our here and now resources, checking in, being very realistic, very honest. What am I up for today? What can I manage? What's a reasonable expectation of myself? You've got to sort of become master of your own destiny here, I think. It's no good listening to all of those shoulds and sort of forcing yourself to go off and, intermingle with everyone in Primark or, you know, wherever it might be, and having a complete sort of meltdown about it. You just got to take it really slowly, I think. Work at your own pace would be my, you know, suggestion on that. And use your very obvious techniques. Use your breathing technique. Use your mindfulness technique. You know, you can do those things as you go along. So like almost practicing, getting better and better at being more mindful, or you can use them when you need them. You know, if you're starting to feel stressed, you're starting to feel anxious, just take yourself off for a moment, practice breathing. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I know that you started to touch on this, but what's one way that you believe that people could start to honour their body? And by that I mean listen and recognise what their body's telling them and to honour those needs. What's one way that they honour their needs during times of anxiety?
So I think this might not be what people are expecting to hear, actually, but I think it's absolutely critical that we get in touch with the child part of ourselves. So we've talked a lot about how anxiety can be all of those shoulds. That's the critical parent part of our psyche. We need to get in touch with the child part that hasn't played in so long, that hasn't been spontaneous in so long. That's the bit that will help us to just, you know, relax and feel good about ourselves and be really present. You know, we need to figure out what play means to us, I think, as adults. You know, and it is honouring the spontaneous parts of ourselves. And interestingly, it does often involve moving our bodies, I think, whether that's skipping or doing yoga or dancing, or it is different things for different people. But often when you say, you know, what does the child part of you really want to do, it is often something that involves moving your body spontaneously in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is so much freedom in that, isn't there? And I think that's where sort of the childlike state comes in, because there is so much freedom. And what would be some of the other ways that you would suggest that as adults we can play, we can connect in a play?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of the ways that I play. I have a skipping rope, which is a complete lockdown thing. I saw this guy on LinkedIn doing this skipping, and I've managed to acquire the nickname Skippy. I've got quite good, actually. I'm quite impressed with myself. But yeah, I think again, you know, we come back to newness. You know, what can we try that's new, that's a bit different, that we haven't, you know, what can we say yes to? What, you know, how can we create something that feels a bit spontaneous and a bit new? How do I, you know, dancing is, you know, I don't know why sometimes I wait to get in my car to put the music up really loud. You know, why do I wait? Why do I wait for that? Why don't I just do it anyway? Like, I absolutely love it. I feel like, you know, I kind of imagine I'm like a pop star for that 10-minute journey, and, you know, imagine I'm sort of 16 again. It's like the best feeling ever. Yeah. So why on earth do I wait to get in the car to do that? You know, I think, I think there's so much, you know, more playful stuff that we can be doing. It's about knowing the difference, I think, between what you like to do. And I almost think about this a bit like, I like going to the theatre. You know, I really like it. It's a, you know, and sometimes it's amazing, but for the most part, I really like it. You know, I think the bit that really sets my soul on fire is everyone going out for dinner and talking about it afterwards. Yeah. You know, for me, often the setting your soul on fire bit is the communication, relationship part of it. So you all go to the theatre and it's great, but how awful would it be if everyone went home and didn't speak to each other afterwards, sort of thing? Yeah. But I think we have to really know, you know, what do I like to do, and what absolutely completely rocks my world, and we have to sort of figure that out, because we've lost it a bit as adults. I think, you know, we get into this place of thinking that's for the kids, the play stuff is for the children. And it's not, it's for us as well. Like, you know, we really, really need it. We deserve it. We deserve it. You know, we need to, you know, this is about honouring your body. You know, we need to honour ourselves by living as spontaneously and with as much sort of freedom and pleasure as possible. Why not?
Yeah, I love that. Why not indeed? Why not indeed? And yeah. I've also noticed, and it's sometimes it will be about the sort of the movement, other times it's about the conversations and the laughter. Sometimes I found myself reading the Magic Faraway Tree again a few months ago, and it's an Eden Blyton book. I read it when I was a kid, and it massively captured my imagination when I was a little girl. And I just love it. And you know, I put a post up a few months ago about I was reading it. The response I got from people that were like, yes, I love it. Yes, I've just been reading it too. And I think that there was something that the innocence in the book it's written in the 1930s, 40s, 50s. You know, and it is kind of through the eyes of the children and these imaginary tree and characters and pure escapism. And there's something about that fantasy, isn't there, and being able to escape and the childlike wonder and magic that we can get conditioned out of because we're on a never-ending to-do list as adults. Whereas the childlike state of being is very wondrous, very magical, very creative, very storytelling. And so it's also some things that we can choose to read or listen to, yeah, and go down memory lane with, hang out with some kids.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I love the way you said see through the eyes of a child. It's almost like that's what we need to do, isn't it? It's like we need to see through the eyes of our inner child again,
Yeah.
see with the excitement and with the wonder. It's, you know, it's difficult to do. You know, we're busy and we have responsibilities and there's so much going on. We have to really create the space and the sort of conditions to do this. But my God, it's worth it. It's really worth it.
Love that. Love that. So as we begin to wrap up, and I can feel like my energy's changed as we're talking, starting to talk.
Yeah.
Childlike state of being. Thank you for sharing your incredible wisdom this evening. How can people get in contact with you after this evening? How can people get to know more about you and this amazing support that you offer?
I'm absolutely terrible at this part. This is the bit that I just have never really sort of thought about. But I'm on here. I have to be on Instagram, don't I? Because yeah, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. So that's one way. My company is called the Wellness Project. And I have a website, so you can always find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And you can pretty much find me everywhere. So yeah, do definitely get in touch. And I'm always happy to have a chat and you know, talk to people and help them if I can. Yeah.
Beautiful. And you know, after this evening we will be keeping a lookout in the comments, so this will be live on my page, it'll be live on Natasha's page as well, so do feel free to leave any comments highlighting any questions you've got or anything that's resonated for you or anything that you've tried and that's worked for you. Please do leave it in the comments and we'll get back to you. Again, also, if there's anybody that you know who may be suffering with anxiety, share this video with them. I think it's really important, this idea of, you know, I love this notion of sharing is caring. So do feel free to pass this on to anybody who you feel it could offer some, I guess, that sort of helpful, inspiring tools that can help make a positive difference. And you know, whether it be throughout our experience in the last year that's created anxiety, or whether it's because this is kind of part of where we're at in life, I think that reminder to play is just so powerful. And yeah, I'm so grateful that you've brought that up.
Yeah, if you take one thing away, go and play. Just go play. That's it.
Love that. Love that. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you feel like you'd like to share this evening, my love?
I would like to say thank you for being my lovely hostess with the mostess. It was lovely chatting with you.
Oh, it's been beautiful, my love. It's been beautiful. So this is it currently for this Honouring Your Body series. But I know that over the coming days, weeks and months that there'll be more, because I really believe that these conversations are so important in being able to for people to have access to know what's out there and who's out there and how they can support themselves or receive support from others. So if there is anything else that you think you would like to know more about, or you've got some questions or queries about things that are showing up in your life or experiences, then do drop me a private message, as I would love to hear from you, and then we will look to put something together to help answer the next level of questions of honouring your body during whatever experience or time in life that you may have challenges with. So for tonight, that is everything. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for everybody who's joined. Just going to check if there are any other questions before we wrap up. Yeah, people have been saying that they're helping other people as well as their friends have been helping them through things. Walks have been helping anxiety and emotions. The best book, yeah, I think that was the Faraway Tree. It's just such a beautiful book. Photography and talking with friends really helps anxiety. And then other messages of thank you, thanks for this, thank you, absolutely love this chat, and thank you for everything. So thank you so much, lovely people, for joining us. And if there are any other questions, quickly pop them in the chat. Otherwise, we shall be speaking to you again on our pages. Anything else you want to add, Natasha?
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Cool. Take care, everyone.
Love to see you. Bye. Bye-bye.